to feel this is their year.
They must be playing defensive. Schmeichel's not coming up for this one. Thinks he's done enough.
Is this their moment? Into Sheringham and Solskjaer has won it! Manchester United have reached the promised land. Oli Solskjaer, the two substitutes, have scored the 2 goals in stoppage time.
4,
And the treble looms large.
1.
Hello and welcome to the United Community channel, and we're back with another morning news show. Really looking forward to jumping into this one, guys. Hope you enjoyed the new intro. I hope you could hear the audio and everything on it. I'm not sure if it worked, but let me know in the chat if it has. But you're all welcome, guys. Thanks for joining. Plenty to get into today. I'm going to keep it in around maybe 20-25 minutes today as well. But look, obviously the main talking point at the moment in relation to Manchester United is the takeover of the club and potential new bids coming in. Obviously, we've seen the debacle the other night in relation to bids not coming in on time and such and such. So we're going to get into that as well. And we're going to get into the Glazers money grab, basically. As you can see by the thumbnail and the title of this video, it's the Glazers doing what the Glazers do best, being greedy, taking money for themselves, extortionate amounts that they're looking for Manchester United. So look, we're going to get into it. Looking forward to it. Who we got in? Marley is there. Good to see you. Thanks for coming back and joining us again. Chris is in as usual. Good to see you, pal. Early start for you in the morning over there as well. So I do appreciate you joining. Get your thoughts and comments into the chat as well, guys. Anybody new watching the show, please do hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We do these morning shows pretty much every morning at 10 o'clock, Monday to Friday. So every weekday morning. And Oshin is in as well. Good to see you, Oshin. So look, let's jump straight into it. I mean, obviously the debacle that was the deadline on Wednesday night, I think was it, the 9 p.m. deadline on Wednesday night. Obviously, we've seen that, and we've known over the past few weeks that the Glazers not the Glazers, but Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sheikh Jassim are the two front runners for Manchester United. Their bids were due in by 9 o'clock. There was a bit of a kerfuffle and they asked for an extension. What I do believe is, and what I've read since then, is that Qatar and the Qatari bid was just about to go in, and they did hear that it was actually Sir Jim Ratcliffe that looked for an extension. Now, the Qatar bid was ready to go in, and they say, okay, well, our main competitors, our main rivals here are looking for an extension, so we're going to jump on that as well. And I think that's a good business move out of anybody. You don't want to show your hand too soon, especially if your main competitor is holding back. So 1 minute the bids were in, the next minute they weren't in, the next minute there was an extension. Sky Sports didn't know what was going on. Nobody knew what was going on. So it was a bit of a kerfuffle. But subsequently, since then, it does, and I think today actually, or if not last night, that the bids have officially gone in. I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think we have to overly worry about it. But I suppose the main news that we heard over the overnight or last night, again, this is coming from Mike Keegan, in relation to the Glazers and what they want for Manchester United. And it doesn't bode for good reading, I have to say. And we can see here, insiders say that the Glazers expect well above £6 billion sterling for the sale of Manchester United. Now, this is just absolute extortionate amounts for Manchester United. And we've seen before, and we've seen, I suppose when the initial bids came in, them kind of preliminary bids, that we were looking at anywhere between 4 and 4.5 billion and that would be generous in relation to the valuation of Manchester United going forward. So, it doesn't bode well for fans in particular, and what we want. And what every fan wants pretty much is for the Glazers to be gone, and hearing these kind of reports that they're not going to sell for any less than 6 billion. And we have, on the back of hearing that, we've heard, the likes of the Qatari I suppose a lot of the noise and a lot of the talk coming out of the Qatar side, and of course the Sir Jim Ratcliffe side, is that they're not going to be drawn into a bidding war to pay extortionate amounts for Manchester United. They're smart businessmen. Of course, especially on the Qatari side, there's pretty much unlimited funds, but they're not going to be taken advantage of either. They're going to say, look, this is what we value the club at. This is our offer. We're not going any higher than this. And I think it's just a pure money grab out of the Glazers. It really is. It's not what we want to hear as fans. But, does it surprise you? Are we surprised by these two, and what they're doing and what they're expecting out of the club? It really doesn't bode well. It really doesn't. Oshin says, I'm worried that they're looking for a minority investor, and this is all a smokescreen. That's the big worry on my end as well, Oshin. It's, these... Are the Glazers playing the two primary bidders in terms of Qatar and Jim Ratcliffe against each other to drive up share value, to drive up the price that people are looking for, to then come along and say to a minority investor, they're willing to pay this amount for the club if we're to stay on, as Manchester United owners, and would you be willing to back us or invest us as a way for us to stay on and keep control of the club, and look to invest in the stadium and the infrastructure and things like that. That's the big worry. So I completely get what you're saying there. Chris then says, I think they're trying to make it look like that so they get as much money as possible, which is, absolutely. I agree with you there. And the Crazy Irishman says, I wish to go ASAP. We're all sick of him. I agree with you. Absolutely we are. And, I want to, go through a document. And this is just something to highlight before I go through the report as well. It was mentioned again by Mike Egan last night. If the Glazers refuse to budge, the likelihood of a full sale going through is minimal. Indeed, there are growing concerns that those seeking to buy the club are wasting their time. So again, this is not bought for good reading for Manchester United fans and what we're hoping to get out of the coming weeks and months. Are these stumbling blocks going to slow down the sale process? It would be inevitable, I think. And of course, what we want is a full sale of the club and the Glazers gone before the end of the season, before the transfer window opens, so we can plan for the future and we can plan for, potential incomings in relation to signings, putting people in the right place to kind of set the infrastructure for, future seasons and future years ahead. That's what we want. So these reports don't sound good, but it's a very pessimistic way of looking at it because there certainly is interest in the club. I wanted to run through some of the, this report that I came across overnight, and I just said I had to share it with you. 7 shocking numbers behind the Glazers' reign at Manchester United, and it's absolutely phenomenal what they've done to Manchester United and how basically they've run the club into the ground. If we start down here. Generated income. Old Trafford is the biggest stadium in the Premier League with a capacity of over 74,000, which is regularly packed out on match days, and has generated huge revenue. Under the Glazers' ownership, United have generated a whopping 7.5 billion in ticket sales and other commercial avenues as the club's brand has grown exponentially. Now, 7.5 billion is an absolute huge amount to be generated by any sports brand, so you would have to say it's phenomenal, and that bodes well in relation to what we're generating, and I think we know as fans, seeing over the last 18, 19 years that the Glazers have been in charge, that it's this kind of revenue generated that's allowed Manchester United to spend money and sign players without our owners investing anything out of their own pocket. You know what I mean? But it goes on to say some of the different areas that they've invested in. Wage bill is a huge one. Wages have skyrocketed in football since 2005, but the Premier League has seen a boom like no other. The annual wage bill at Manchester United stood at 77 million when they took over, and this has increased 5 times since. So it's absolute. Now, look, we know that wages have increased drastically over the years, not just at Manchester United, but in terms of football in general, and on the back of the Premier League exploding in popularity globally, we've seen a lot of football players coming to the Premier League and getting paid higher wages that they may, you would have to go to a Barcelona or a Real Madrid to kind of match the type of wages that you would probably get at a Spurs or even over the last few years, obviously we know Newcastle are coming into that, but over the last few years, you could go to a West Ham or you could go to a Leicester City and get 100, 150 grand a year, and that's on the back of the Premier League's popularity and the money that's there and the investment that's going into clubs. But Manchester United, and we know as Manchester United fans over the last 10 years, especially since Alex Ferguson left, that we've handed out absolute crazy wages. And as we can see here, obviously David De Gea is the top earner on £375,000 per week. And look, we all know that David De Gea is in talks for a new deal at Manchester United, but Erik ten Hag is looking to get this type of wage. As we can see here, it's something that Erik ten Hag has been keen to get under control, this vast amount of wages being spent by Manchester United. And I think Liverpool, as much as, Liverpool are rivals to us, I think you do have to give them some kind of credit over the last few years when they've had certain wage structures in place. We've only seen maybe in the last 12 to 18 months, the likes of Mo Salah getting drastically improved salary at Liverpool. I think up to that, he was on less than 150 grand a year. And so I think it's important, but it just goes to show how poorly run the club has been under the Glazers. Now, player wages is not the main, I suppose, talking point here, or something that boils my blood more than anything else. It comes to board earnings. Now, board members themselves have seen healthy increases in their earnings since 2005. Payments to the board have increased by over 6 times in some instances since 2005. The board earnings peaked during the 2018 season as the highest paid director took home £4.1 million for his role at just under £80,000 per week. That's more than plenty of Premier League footballers would get. And I think this is what riles and boils Manchester United fans' blood more than anything else, is the fact that the money being paid out to board directors, and of course we know the dividends that went under the Glazers as well. So it's something that is just, it's inexcusable, really. And we see the dividends that the Glazers are pulling out of the club year after year, and I think Gary Neville hit the nail on the head really, really well when he said Manchester United is a failing company. It's a failing business, and any failing business in the world do not take dividends out of the club for shareholders until that club is turning a profit. Manchester United have not been turning a profit over the last few years under the Glazers, but yet they continue to pull dividends out of the club. They continue to give, massive payments out to board directors and dividends holders, and it's just something that Manchester United fans are, as we know, over the last few years have been absolutely in uproar over, and rightly so. Let's see, lender earnings. Now, this is a huge one in relation to the Glazers, and we know that how the Glazers bought Manchester United was on the back of huge borrowing. That borrowing was then lumped onto the club, and the investment the interest payments then were coming out of Manchester United generated revenue. And as we can see here, lenders have perhaps benefited the most from the Glazers ownership, as they have been paid 917 million in interest payments alone. In interest payments on loans with interest rates up to 14.25%. Shareholders, who many have the surname Glazers, have earned £167 million over that period as well. Now, this is just inexcusable. It really, really is inexcusable. As a fan, where you want investment put back into your club, we've seen Old Trafford fall into pieces. We've seen our training facilities, being put on the back burner, and now, a second-rate training facilities when you look at other clubs in the Premier League. And look, it just goes to show what the Glazers are doing. Despite this, though, United have suffered an overall loss of 354 million under the Glazers, which is staggering considering they recorded a Premier League profit of 278 million from 1992 to 2005 prior to the Glazers taking over. I mean, do you need to be told any more about the Glazers and how poor they've run the club? You really don't. And it's just it's so infuriating as a fan. It really is. Oshin says, it still boggles my mind how the Prem left that purchase go through. Yeah, it was a leveraged buyout. It really was. And it's funny that for anyone that has ever been looking into it, or anyone knows how the Glazers opportunity came about, it all came with Alex Ferguson and his ownership in a horse. And it was an Irishman, JP McManus, that him and Ferguson fell out over, and he was one of the highest owners, or I don't think he was one of the high. He was he had high ownership in Manchester United. Let's put it that way. And there was a court case between him and Alex Ferguson in relation to the ownership of the horse. The Rock of Gibraltar was the name of the horse. And he decided to sell his shares in Manchester United on the back of falling out with Alex Ferguson and on the back of this court case. And that gave the Glazers the opportunity to come in. I think they bought a minority share at a minority stake in the club at first, and then leveraged, a majority share in it. So it really is frustrating. I have to say that, that these two have run our club into the ground over the last 18 years. And it wasn't just them. Obviously, they inherited it from their father, Malcolm Glazer. And, it's the time has come. The time has come for them to go. But when you see things like this, and when you see things like this, it doesn't bode well. You know what I mean? Now, again, there's been conflicting reports throughout the press over the last days and weeks in relation to whether they are going to sell or not. I think they will eventually. I think if they don't and they remain, the backlash from Manchester United fans would be so severe that I don't think it would leave them much option. I really don't. Now, I do want to get into as well, guys. There has been, obviously on the back of the delayed bids from Qatar and from Sir Jim Ratcliffe, we have seen another potential bidder come in. And the potential bidder coming in, let me just get him up here now, is... Sorry, I should have had this prepared, but it's... Let me just pull him up here. It's this guy. So, Thomas Zalakis, and he is a Finnish entrepreneur. He's not a finished entrepreneur. He's an entrepreneur from Finland who has put a bid in to buy Manchester United. Now, when I first heard it, I thought, ooh, this sounds interesting. So basically, let me run through what he said. Basically, I'll put up the full. I'll put up the full statement here from him. And when I first heard it, I thought it was interesting. So basically, what he wants to do is he wants to buy Manchester United. He wants to buy 50% of Manchester United, and he will fund that himself. The other 50% of Manchester United, he wants to be fan-owned. And when I first heard that, I went, okay, interesting. You'd instantly think about, the 50+1 method that you see in the likes of Germany, where there's a lot more fan ownership than, you see in England. But the more I read into it, the more I thought this lad is not with it at all. So basically what he wants to do is he wants every Manchester United fan in the world to pay $3 to fund the other 50% for Manchester United. Basically, what would happen is you would download an app, you would pay $3 to download the app, or whatever that equivalent amount of money is in whatever country you're in, if it's euros, pounds, whatever it may be. When you download that app, then you have a say in the decisions of Manchester United. Now, first and foremost, $3 means you would need 1 billion Manchester United fans to pay that $3 throughout the world. That's 1 in 7 people in the world to download this app and pay $3 to be part of the fan ownership of the club. It would instantly be the number 1 app in the world. It would be the highest used app in the world. So that in itself would, would provide massive issues, I would think, and it would provide massive, I suppose, massive investment to actually run something like that. Basically, what would happen then, any decisions that the club are going to make, the fans will have their vote on the app, and then no decision is made without a majority of people involved in the club deciding on it. Now, my issue with this is, okay, let's say, and I mentioned it last night in our live, which went horribly, by the way, because that stupid bloody streaming software is glitching on me. Anyway, but what would stop if a decision was, and the analogy we used last night was, if the decision, something silly like giving Phil Jones a new 3-year deal, if that decision was put to fan members and board members and fans had to say it, blah, blah. I know that's never going to happen because that's decided by the manager and things like that. But let's take it for a funny example. If that was the case, what would stop Liverpool fans or Man City fans or Chelsea fans or whoever other fans in the world downloading that app, paying €3 for it, $3 for it, whatever it is, if then technically you have your say, and you're technically a part owner of Manchester United and you have your say. You would have fans messing around with it. Phil Jones would have a new 10-year contract on $400,000 a year. It just doesn't make sense, and I think and a lot of the reports coming out about this guy over the last 24 hours. And Mark says it perfectly here. It's definitely a publicity stunt. And a lot of people are saying this as well. He has come out and said that it's not a publicity stunt. And let me see, let me know if you guys can hear this. You guys hear? No. Okay. Right. You can't hear it. Right. That's no problem. So basically, look, he's coming out and saying it's not a publicity stunt. It's something he's very interested in doing. So look, basically what it is it's a very European way of looking at, and maybe he's been completely serious. Maybe it is something that he does want for Manchester United. Maybe it's something that he is very passionate about and very positive about. I don't think it's ever going to work. I really don't. I think when you have powerhouses like the Qatari bid, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, this guy is after coming out of complete air. I think if he had set out his stall at the same time maybe as the Qataris came out and announced their interest in the club, or when Sir Jim Ratcliffe came out and announced his interest for the club, if he had done that early doors and really put the foundations into what he wants to do as a Manchester United owner, and he came to Old Trafford, like Sir Jim Ratcliffe did, like the Qatari representatives did, then I think he would have been taken a lot more seriously. But I think it's I do agree with everybody else. I think it's a publicity stunt. Oshin says it there as well. So the guy pulling a publicity stunt says it's not a publicity stunt. Seems legit. Yeah, look, I completely get you. But look, I mean, it's an interesting one. It really is. I don't know the ins and outs of you know, we're hearing these reports that the Glazers want 6 billion, you know, and they're not going to budge outside of that. You would hope that's not the case. You would hope that they're open to negotiation a little bit more. We haven't heard any major reports today in relation to any huge updates. You know, obviously the delayed bids was something that was frustrating. Talk amongst people at United was that there are 3 other bids to Sheikh Jassim and Radcliffe's bid. That's coming from Laurie Whitwell. Yeah, and he mentioned then as well that after being informed of an extension from Radcliffe, Sheikh Jassim was not prepared to enter his bid when the situation may change, and that's understandable as well. But up until then, guys, we haven't heard any major updates. Not an awful lot of updates today in relation to that. You know, we haven't had major talks about any transfer updates either. So I just said we'd jump on and do a quick update on it and talk about it and get your maybe opinion on it. But yeah, up to that, there's not an awful lot more to talk about. I do hope that, you know, these reports coming out about the Glazers and that they want 6 billion are wide of the mark. Obviously, you do have to take all of these reports with a pinch of salt. It's Manchester United. There's always going to be reports circulating, you know, contradicting one another. So we don't know. But let's hope that they are open to negotiations. You know, these setbacks and these, you know, extensions. Look, I think they're getting an extension to the end of the week. Now, whether that be close of business, I would presume it's probably close of business today. Usually these things are close of business on a weekday. So let's hope we'll hear more by the end of the day, if not the end of the week. On the back of that, then the Glazers said that they are going to take a week to discuss and consider the bids that they've received, and that there could potentially be a third round of bidding then after that as well, if their bidding is not, or the bids are not up to their suitability. So look, I don't think we're going to get a conclusion to this anytime soon. Our goal, of course, is by the end of the season that we get, you know, an outcome to this, and hopefully a positive one. You know, and of course with Manchester United not playing games at the moment, it is something that we're going to focus on a lot more. You know what I mean? But look, once we get back to playing football, once these bloody international breaks are out of the way, we can not put this on the back burner, but we can concentrate on football a little bit more. But I'll keep you up to date, guys, throughout the day until we hear more. Keep an eye on TikTok. If there's any breaking news, I will update you on that as well. And of course, if there is any substantial breaking news between now and Monday, I will, of course, be I'll of course go live for it. But we will be back, of course, on Monday for another news show. Hopefully we'll have some updates by then. Hopefully we'll see some positive bids going in. I don't think we're going to really get some positive or some definitive figures on what the bids are going to be. Obviously there's non-disclosure agreements with all of the bidders that, you know, they don't talk publicly about what they've bid and the amounts they've bid and things like that. So, look, it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the weekend, guys. Like I said, if there is any major updates, I will go live and I'll let you know. I appreciate everyone that's in. Please smash a like on the video. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. And if you're watching back to this video, you're not watching live, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I do appreciate it. Hit the like and subscribe button. Like I said, I'll be back Monday morning. Again, we have watch along on Monday night then as well for Ireland versus France. Big one for Ireland. We're going to have our backs against the wall, I think. But looking forward to that as well, getting the watch alongs in. And we won't be doing a podcast on Monday, obviously, because United are not playing. But we'll be back the following Monday with our podcasts as well. But until Monday, again, like I said, if there's any breaking news between now and then, we'll be going live for it and we'll discuss it. So if you haven't hit the subscribe button, do hit the bell notification so you get notified as soon as I go live. Appreciate everyone jumping on, guys. But until Monday, take it easy.